breaking news. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in an interview right here, tells us about his relationship with President Trump.
I'll describe it the way President Trump described it. He said it couldn't be better. But as you say, friends can have agreements and disagreements. We agree on just about everything, but there are areas of disagreement.
So what are those areas of disagreements? Plus, I not only asked the Prime Minister about the state of Iran's nuclear program, but of something else that could be very dangerous. Does Iran have biological and chemical weapons in their supply? His answer and the full interview is moments away. Plus, President Trump gets the royal treatment in Turkey. The president is in Turkey for the NATO summit. President Trump did not hold back on his disdain for NATO.
I was very disappointed with NATO. We weren't treated well because we did something in Iran. We don't need anybody's help. I didn't even want their help. But before I asked, they said they wouldn't be there.
Plus, Democrats are quickly jumping ship, getting away from Maine senatorial candidate Graham Platner.
Did Graham Platner rape you?
By definition, yes. Absolutely.
Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman, who has not held back on his criticism of Platner, will join me. I'm Greta Van Susteren. This is The Record. As I mentioned, President Trump is in Turkey for the NATO summit. A critical topic, whether or not to sell F-35 fighter jets to Turkey.
It's a decision we're going to make. We have a very good relationship. I would think that many people, I can tell you, many people, including the people sitting right here, thinks, why wouldn't we do that? We have a better relationship with Turkey, and Turkey's been in many ways much more loyal than other countries that we think would be loyal. So, yeah, it's something certainly we would consider. It's a great plane.
Turkey's neighbor Israel is not happy about selling F-35s to Turkey. Earlier, I spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Prime Minister, nice to talk to you again, sir.
Good to talk to you, Greta.
Mr. Prime Minister, President Trump is in Turkey at the NATO summit, meeting with President Erdogan today, and there's discussion about selling F-35s to Turkey. What does that impact on Israel, if any?
I think it's a mistake because Erdogan has a regime that threatens Greece, a NATO partner, occupies half of Cyprus, a NATO partner, and frankly, openly calls for Israel's destruction. His number two a few days ago said, the Jewish state has no place among the nations. You know what you have to do to remove it from its place among the nations. His number three, the interior minister, says he's looking forward to the day that he will govern Jerusalem. So these people are talking about annihilating my country. He's put more journalists in jail than I think any other regime in the world. He puts his opponents in jail. He is infected completely by the Muslim Brotherhood movement, which hates America and chants death to America. That's from the other side. There are the radical Shiites in Iran and the radical Sunnis that are led by Turkey. So this is not a friend of the United States. I think many in the region, including myself, would be very much concerned if Erdogan, if this regime that often condemns America and often attacks America verbally, that it should have the weapons like the F-35. I think it will greatly destabilize the region.
Well, President Trump seemed to indicate that he had a very good relationship with Erdogan, but back in September, I think it was September of 2023, Erdogan was quoted as saying a just world is possible, but not with America. And I suspect that was about the time he at the UN, and you also met with Erdogan about that time. Is Erdogan someone we cannot trust?
I would not trust him. He's not a friend of the United States. Now, granted, there are personal relations in the international, in the international arena, and I don't discount that President Trump has such a relationship with Erdogan. On the other hand, he also has such a relationship with the dictator of North Korea. That doesn't make North Korea a friend of the United States. So I think that changing the power balance by giving this regime that often condemns America, often attacks America, does not join in helping America with Iran. In fact, he was stopped from helping Iran against America. So I think this is not a regime you want to sell F-35s or advanced jet engines to.
And turning now to Iran, they've had the funeral service for the Ayatollah, and naturally I saw the pictures, lots of people, thousands, maybe a million, many of them with signs that said, "Kill Trump, kill you," I think kill War Secretary Hegseth. In the midst of all this, we're trying to work out some sort of peace deal with Iran. Can Iran be trusted? Has Iran changed? And can we possibly work a deal out with them?
No, of course you can't trust them, and therefore, I don't know if there will be a deal or no deal. I've pledged, as President Trump has pledged, that Iran under no circumstances would have nuclear weapons, and I stand by that. Now, what do you do when you make a deal with someone you don't trust? You make sure that you have 100 ways to verify compliance with the deal. That is, if you have a deal at all. So I think it's too early to say, but I personally would not trust Iran the length of this room, which is about 3 meters long. So no, they're totally untrustworthy.
Can we rely on the IAEA? Are they competent to do, if they do the inspections? Because I know we've had problems in the past. I mean, Iran was enriching uranium, and it wasn't located. We didn't know about it. At least I didn't know about it. Maybe that's not, maybe everybody else did. But can the IAEA really do the job of inspecting and protecting the world?
Well, not if it's under the former agreement, which is called the JCPOA. That was signed by the previous administration. I'll tell you why. Because they have the right under that agreement to be warned a month ahead of time of an upcoming inspection. You know how much evidence you can destroy, how many signs you can bury in a month. And not only that, they still have the right to let you in where they choose to let you in and not to let you in other places. So the inspection regime of the IAEA could be fine if it was universal, if it was accessible at any time, if Iran could not stop the inspections at will. That's not what they had. That's the only kind of inspection you should have, but it remains to be seen if there'll be a deal at all.
Let me go back to June a year ago when the United States and Israel hit some targets in Iran. And at least what we were told at first is that there was a destruction or heavily hit the nuclear enrichment capabilities of Iran. Can you tell me what their capabilities are, what they were then after we hit and what they are now? Do you have any idea?
Yes, of course I do. Look, we went out to these, first to the Rising Lion operation, which President Trump added Midnight Hammer, the use of the B-2s at the end of the operation. We went to that and subsequently to what is called Epic Fury. We call it Roaring Lion. We went to that because Iran was on the verge of making nuclear weapons. We pushed that immediate threat away. We destroyed a lot of their infrastructure, a lot of their centrifuges, a lot of the associated factories and facilities that they use for manufacturing nuclear weapons, and we knocked out 20 of their top nuclear scientists. 20 of their top nuclear scientists. So we pushed it back considerably. Do they have that capability now? No, because we pushed them back. But it doesn't mean that left to their own devices, they'll go back to it. It's like, when you excise a piece of cancer, a lump of cancer from your body, it may come back. But you know one thing, if you wouldn't do it, you could die. And Israel was obviously placed with an existential threat. And America was was threatened with a very great danger. Because if this regime that chants death to America, death to Trump, will destroy America and so on, if you give that regime the ability to have ballistic missiles that could reach ultimately the United States, and they could arm it with nuclear weapons, then every single American would be in danger. That's why we set out to do these two things, and that is destroying the nuclear threat or pushing it away, and also destroying a good chunk of their capacity to make ballistic missiles. That's very important, not only for our security and the security of every country in our region, but also for the security of the United States. And that's why President Trump decided to do this. He does what he thinks is good for the United States. And in this case, I would say it was essential for the security of the United States.
There's always the talk about the nuclear weapons. The thing that always frightens me and that nobody ever talks about, maybe this doesn't involve Iran or not, but it's biological and chemical weapons. Does Iran have biological and chemical weapons in their supply?
They definitely have chemical weapons. That I can tell you. And that is another danger that they pose. Understand, this is a regime that has, there are about 90 million people in Iran, and the vast majority, like 80%, hate this regime. They basically consider it theological thugs who took over the country and hold them at gunpoint. In fact, they shoot them. They murdered and maimed over 40,000 Iranians who are praying for their liberty. So you could see that this regime that doesn't care about murdering its own citizens, when they chant death to the United States, that have no compunction about using these weapons if they had them. And the greatest danger that humanity faces is the marriage between a radical Islamic regime and nuclear weapons. When you have both in Iran, you're in great, I would say, in mortal danger. That's what we set out to prevent. We pushed it back, but it's not over. The jury's still out. I'm the first to say that.
Well, there were so many leaders that were killed. Even the Ayatollah was killed on day one, on February 28th, but it seems they've got so many layers. I mean, how deep can they go? I mean, no matter how many of these layers of their leadership, because, I'm quite surprised that they keep, getting up and fighting again.
Well, they're very weak. They're a lot weaker than they were before because of the combined action of our brave soldiers, your brave soldiers and ours, and I think the brave pilots. I mean, we knocked out a lot of their infrastructure, a lot of their capabilities. Iran is tottering. The IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards that basically control Iran, they lost a lot of their money machines. That is the various industries that they use to milk the funds and give them the money. They live like kings. You got to understand this. The Iranian people are in abject poverty. And the dictators and their goons who tyrannize them, they live like kings. By the way, the same is in Gaza, the same with Hezbollah, with their proxies, the same thing, They take care of themselves, and they care nothing for the people. So I don't think this will last. I think eventually the people will throw them out. We'll have to give them a little assistance. But this regime that doesn't care a whit about murdering its own people will not care a whit about murdering hundreds of thousands of Americans if they could. Let's not give them the means to do so. Let's make sure that they end their nuclear program, because otherwise bad things will happen.
Well, I was always surprised when Haniyeh, who was taken out as the leader of Hamas, he was living in Qatar. I think when he was killed, he's worth about $4 or $5 billion. And as I always said, he didn't invent the iPhone. Where did he get the money? I mean, it's like, and he didn't start Amazon here. So I was shocked. But let me turn to the money of Iran. Are they able now to finance Hezbollah? Because you're dealing with that in the northern part of Israel and into Lebanon. What's the future of peace with Lebanon? Is Hezbollah being choked at all by the fact that Iran has money problems?
It is, but to the extent that Iran will get money, they'll funnel it to Hezbollah first thing, because Hezbollah is their proxy. It's their proxy in this part of the world to threaten Israel and threaten anyone else in sight. I think Hezbollah, like Iran, has been battered by our action, but it's not disappeared. It had 150,000 rockets and missiles before we took them out. That's the greatest concentration of missiles and ballistic missiles on the planet. Now they have about 8% of that. That still leaves them a sufficient quantity, but it's not, it's not what it was before. And yes, Iran is trying to finance them as we speak, and we're trying to prevent them from financing them. And that's not only good for us, it's good for Lebanon, because Israel and Lebanon would have peace. We could sign the fifth peace deal in the Abraham Accords after the 4 peace agreements that President Trump and I achieved with 4 Arab countries. Lebanon would gladly be the 5th, but it can't because Iran placed Hezbollah there as basically as a foreign ideology that takes this beautiful country, Lebanon, beautiful people, and tyrannizes them. And if anyone dares oppose them, they shoot them, just the way they do on the streets of Tehran. So ultimately, we'll have to deal with Hezbollah. We've done quite a bit up to now. But Lebanon will be free, and Israel and Lebanon will have a peace agreement when Hezbollah is dismantled in Lebanon.
It's been said over and over again by you, by President Trump, about what great friends the United States and Israel are. Sometimes friends get mad at each other. There have been reports that it's been a little bit testy between you and President Trump, obviously on a very complicated issue having to do with what do we do about Iran. You're a closer neighbor, so you got a bigger problem than we do. But tell me, how would you describe currently your relationship with President Trump and with the United States?
Well, I'll describe it the way President Trump described it. He said it couldn't be better. But as you say, friends can have agreements and disagreements. We agree on just about everything, but there are areas of disagreement. I just mentioned one of them, which is providing F-35s to Turkey. I think this is not a good thing. And by the way, what I'm telling you, I say to my friend Donald Trump, the President of the United States, in private conversations. It's not that it's not that I'm hiding it, or I feel confident enough in our friendship, in our alliance, that I can tell him what I think is important for the interests of protecting Israel, and he tells me what he thinks is important for the interests of the United States. This is a real friendship, a real alliance. As in any friendship, in any family, you can have broad agreements and some disagreements. Nothing bad from that.
How far are we from phase 2 with Hamas? I mean, I sort of expected that to be a lot faster, the Hamas disarming. Is Hamas going to disarm? Are we ever going to get to phase 2?
No, they're doing everything to avoid that. They don't want to disarm, and they certainly don't want Gaza to be demilitarized. They just want to continue tyrannizing the Gaza population there and launching terrorist raids into Israel. They can't do that right now because we're basically enveloping them with our brave soldiers. So they refuse to disarm. They refuse to demilitarize. They're basically, trying to cheat their way out of their commitments, and we shouldn't let them do that. I will say that, we passed just a few days ago a seminal date, the 250th anniversary of the United States. I want to send on this opportunity too our congratulations to the American people, because the United States of America has been the sentinel of security and peace and freedom. And if it weren't for the United States, Nazism could have won, or Stalinism could have won, and we would have entered into a dark age for God knows how many hundreds of years. So the United States has been the guardian of freedom, and we in Israel, a free, democratic country, we salute the United States. I know there are a lot of discussions, there are a lot of arguments inside America, which is a robust democracy. We have a lot of arguments inside Israel. We're a robust democracy too. But I never lose sight of the fact that it is the ability to have disagreements that marks a free country. And so many of the regimes around us, beginning with Iran and in Turkey too, they don't let this open discussion happen, because if you disagree with the regime, you end up in jail. That's not the American way, and it's not the Israeli way. And thank God we have our two democracies to continue the tradition of freedom and open discourse.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much. It's always nice to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up, one U.S. Senate candidate is on the hot seat. The critical question, did he or didn't he? You decide when the record continues.
Federal agencies urge every family to have an emergency radio. During any disaster, electrical power may get cut. The emergency radio gives you the vital information you need. Newsmax wants you to have the Dynamo Emergency Band Radio. It doesn't need batteries and works in any emergencies. It retails for $30. you can get it with the free offer. Call or go online and get the emergency radio today. Your life may depend on it.
Honey, Mortgage Money 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Money 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
When Conor McGregor fights, you're witnessing something once in a lifetime.
Surprise, surprise, the king is back!
All my life I want money and power.
Oh! Conor McGregor transcended the sport!
Max Holloway!
That's a real warrior! I'm right here! You're in for a treat!
McGregor versus Holloway, Saturday, July 11th. Free with your subscription, only on Paramount Plus.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring, understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
Democrat Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner has canceled events, and now he is evaluating next steps. These steps may be tough ones because he is quickly shedding support from his Democratic pals who had endorsed him. Already, the Democrats you see on your screen have pulled their support for Platner. They include United States Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth, Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, and California Congressman Ro Khanna. This comes after Jenny Rasico, who says she previously dated Platner, said he drunkenly forced her to have sex after she told him to stop.
Did Graham Platner rape you?
By definition, yes. Absolutely. He violated multiple layers of consent that night by coming into my home when I asked him not to, and by advancing on me when I told him not to, and furthermore, another incident that I had told him not to do. And
with protection.
Yeah. So, yeah. By the way that my nervous system reacted to this experience, absolutely.
After the accusations by Rasico, Platner took to X to say this.
Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict. We are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward.
As you know, if you watch this news show, this is not the first time Platner has been in the news for negative reasons. He has faced tons of criticism for his past comments. Those comments include endorsing political violence, discrediting rape victims, and using derogatory language. He has also had a Nazi-linked tattoo on his chest. It is a skull and crossbones tattoo. The tattoo has been identified as a Totenkopf. That is a symbol associated with Nazi paramilitary forces known as the SS. This past October, Platner covered up this tattoo with this tattoo. Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. And before we get to the issue of Maine politics, I want to ask you one question. The President of the United States has indicated he's going to sell F-35s to Turkey, which Prime Minister Netanyahu is not in favor of, and Israel has a military edge because it has F-35s. What's your view on whether we should be sending F-35s to Turkey, and can we trust Turkey?
No, I absolutely don't support that. I mean, Turkey, they've become incredibly and intensely anti-Israel. It wasn't just recently. They actually, in the negotiations with Hezbollah, they claim that they're gonna stand Hezbollah with the resistance, and we all know what the resistance means. That's more terrorism and trying to destroy Israel and kill more Jews. So I absolutely do not support the sale of our best technology to Turkey. Yes, now they're a member of NATO, and technically they are an ally. But the second any nation goes and moves against Israel, then absolutely will change my view and would not provide them the kind of technology that we're able to provide.
And since Israel is not a member of NATO, there's no obligation of NATO members to rush in to defend Israel should that happen. Article 5 won't be invoked. All right, now turning to Maine. What's the Democratic Party going to do? I'm making the assumption that the current candidate will step down. Now what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been a dead man walking politically for a while. And now I can't think of a single member of Congress in the Democratic Party that's defending him or now just going to shed a tear. As far as I know, the only people I've seen was Stephen King. I think Stephen King's the only guy, if he hasn't deleted it, saying that Platner should not step down and defended Platner. Now, of course, the Republicans would love that. The Republicans would love if Platner stayed in that race, clearly. But overall, he's going to resign, whether it's tonight or tomorrow. It really doesn't matter because he's been gone for a while.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, he's had a lot of problems prior to this rape allegation. When people endorsed him, members of your party, do you think they really, prior to the rape allegation, do you think they really believed in him, or did they just hold their nose and say that because they wanted to make sure a Democrat won against Collins?
I think the real story for me is, as a committed Democrat, why did so many people on the left got so quickly all in on that? Was clearly he's always been an absolute disgrace and a degenerate. I mean, overall. I mean, so why so many people on the left got all in on him and quickly, and they were willing to ignore all of this, crazy thing that he says on Reddit, or the kinds of way he treated women. And you just watched that clip. That poor woman had to describe, that she was raped by Platner. And so I think finally the Democratic Party just realized, oh my God, what have we done? We've blindly followed him. And that's why I would encourage Sanders to just stop and rethink. And now why, hasn't he have to just set this out? He pushed for Platner more than anyone has. Now, why is he now able to now be a part of the conversation to pick the next person? So for me, mathematically, flipping the seat, in my state, that's made it mathematically possible to flip the majority in the Senate. Sanders and a lot of these other extreme Democrats put that in risk by getting behind somebody like Platner that was an absolute dirtbag and now puts it in complete flux. As far as I can remember, we've ever had a Democratic candidate that was forced to resign from the biggest Senate race in the country because he was credibly accused of raping a woman on CNN.
Senator John Fetterman.
Please let me say this now. I just read the statement from Sanders. He never even mentioned that poor woman that she just claimed that Platner raped. Why we can't talk about the victim? Why can't we just say how terrible that must have been and how brave it was her to get on national, television to describe, that kind of a trauma, and now they have not even seen anyone condemn Platner for what he's behaved and done those things. And many of them actually dismissed the New York Times article that described he has serious problem with violence against women.
Senator John Fetterman from the great state of Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir. And coming up, July 15 is just around the corner, and that is when Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche will have his Senate confirmation hearing, but there may be a snag. That when the record continues.
Join Carl Higbie and his fellow veterans and hear what they have to say about call to service, the rise in socialism, and protecting our Second Amendment. Voices of Valor. Tonight at 6 p.m. only on Newsmax.
I love everybody's here. I love it.
My siblings and I, we always want to honor our mom and dad. And what better way than to make an announcement, Tunnel of Towers is going to take care of their tuition with the May and George Silla Scholarship Program.
all your children out here in the line of duty program, we are going to make sure that we take care of your college tuitions.
Having your college taken care of is just a dream come true.
Go to T2T.org.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
Your neighbor just paid an enormous amount for a new roof, but he didn't have to, and neither do you. Because Roofmax can add years of life to your current roof.
Here's how you know you have a problem with your roof. Black streaking, your roof looks rough, or granules shedding off into your gutters or showing up in your driveway. Your roof is wearing out too fast, and it's going to cost you a bundle. Roofmax makes your roof like new by strengthening and rejuvenating it.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Most people call leaf filter when their gutters are clogged and they notice one of the many issues that can bring. You can get ahead of costly damage by protecting your home's gutters today.
Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
The Department of Justice is fighting back against a suit demanding, under the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, records relating to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Specifically, they want any records relating to the release of Jeffrey Epstein files, which he worked on. American Oversight, a nonprofit, wants the communications now and not after Blanche's July 15 confirmation hearing. The DOJ says in their pleading opposing it, quote, the highly accelerated schedule American Oversight proposes is based on the manufactured emergency of the acting AG's mid-July confirmation hearing, end quote. Meanwhile, more than 1,000 former DOJ employees are opposing Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche from permanently taking on the role as Attorney General. Why? Well, they claim that Blanche has demonized, undermined, and driven career employees out of the department. They do not say in their letter whether 1,000 is out of the ordinary or not in DOJ, which has about, by the way, 116,000 employees. Those who did sign the letter are calling on the Senate to reject President Trump's nomination of Blanche. The letter also claims, quote, Blanche has fired or overseen the firings of hundreds of their employees, usually without notice and for improper and unlawful reasons, end quote. Professor Emeritus at Harvard University, Alan Dershowitz, joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir. So should the Department of Justice turn over these records prior to Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing?
Every single record should be turned over by everybody. There should be no secrets. But I think one of the biggest tragedies is that the Senate and the House themselves have refused to name adult accusers who have falsely accused people of improper conduct. They have redacted that kind of information. For example, there's a statement that says blank blank accused Donald Trump of having forced himself on her and she bit his penis. Why don't we know the name of this adult false accuser who is guilty of a serious crime. So, my view has always been turn over everything. Don't make decisions about what to redact, except for children. If you have children who are abused when they were under the age of consent, okay, you can withhold those names. Everything else should be turned over, and turned over as soon as possible. But I don't think it has anything to do with the confirmation. This is purely political. Presidents ought to be able to get their own attorneys general. President Kennedy got his brother. President Reagan got his personal family lawyer. President Obama got his best buddy. So that's been a tradition. You get your own attorney general. If they have problems, let them bring lawsuits against disclosures. But I don't think they should interfere with the confirmation of a very fine man who I worked with in the past and who I admire as a lawyer.
I have two problems with this. Number one, it should be the Senate. They should be asking for these documents if they have some value in making a determination whether to vote yes or no on this confirmation. Having an outside group, I think, indicates that the Senate may not be as aggressive in doing its job as it should investigate. That's the first thing. The second thing is what the plaintiffs are complaining about is the speed of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and that is the biggest lie to the American people. I have fought for years to get FOIA records. I finally got them when Pam Bondi became Attorney General because I've known her forever. She didn't do anything unlawful, but she finally said, just give Greta Van Susteren what the law requires pursuant to her lawful request. So that's the other big, the big fraud.
It takes years. Also, we're seeing a lot of hypocrisy. The very same congressmen who are so sympathetic, and understandably sympathetic, to real victims of Jeffrey Epstein show no sympathy whatsoever to Platner's victims. The people who supported Platner, Liz Warren, Ro Khanna, all those people, even before this, should be ashamed of themselves. They were supporting somebody who has said and done such horrible things in regard to women and victims of sexual misconduct, and they didn't do anything. It took an accusation of rape.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something very difficult.
Sure.
It's an allegation,
Yeah.
and at least we have a name, and we have that. But I would have disqualified him for the prior stuff. But how do we know that this is a valid? I mean, I hate to say that every women's group is going to come out against me, but as a criminal defense lawyer, I mean, how do you weigh this?
No, I agree with you. But here we have a woman who went on CNN, was subject to tough questioning by a CNN reporter, and every one of us could make decisions about her credibility. I came away believing two things. One, she was very credible. Two, whether this constitutes classic rape or not is a much harder question. She, after all, allowed him to sleep in the same bed as she did after the alleged occurrence. At the very least, she should have moved to a couch or something. But the idea of going and getting into the same bed of a man who just raped you, raises some fair questions. They are only allegations, but even before those, there was enough.
And I point out that a court has a much higher standard than politics does, and his behavior globally is so bad. He shouldn't be running. But anyway, Alan Dershowitz. Thank you.
The only standards that members of Congress have, and the Democrats who have been particularly supportive of this guy Platner before this most recent thing, are total hypocrites and have no standards at all. It's only what's good for the Democratic Party. And they screwed up. It wasn't good for the Democratic Party.
And I agree. Hypocrisy is quite the crime in this town. So there are a lot of guilty people for hypocrisy in this town. Anyway, Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
And it's day 2 of the preliminary hearing for Tyler Robinson. He's charged with assassinating Turning Point CEO Charlie Kirk. Prosecutors expect to prove that a crime was committed and that Tyler Robinson committed it. Today, evidence presented about the hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. One of the lead investigators in Kirk's killing, David Hall, resumed the witness stand. Hall says Robinson spoke to members of Turning Point USA hours before the killing of Kirk. Hall also testified that Robinson then left the college campus and returned later wearing different clothes. However, he was still wearing the same shoes. The campus security camera video shows Robinson returning to campus about 2 hours before the murder. This time, he was walking with a limp. The limp, it has been suggested, might have been because he was hiding a gun or gun part in his pants. After the killing, Robinson was seen jumping down from a campus building and leaving on foot. He was then seen carrying something in his hands. Tyler Robinson's defense lawyer questioned investigator Hall and focused on alternative theories. Coming up, Prince Harry has more bad luck. That when the record continues.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
There's a power within each of us. When awakened, it can boost performance, enhance learning, even help you work smarter. And you can unlock it with one simple thing: better sleep. Saatva provides that with our luxury mattresses, handcrafted with premium materials in our American factories. We even deliver to any room in your home for free. Saatva, you deserve the comfort of a great night's sleep.
Every day across the globe, big business agendas go unseen by investors. Things that go against your core values and beliefs. It's time to know your investments. Abortion, alternative lifestyles, gender and identity confusion. If you believe in protecting marriage and life, children, innocence, guarding masculinity, restoring families, defending religious liberty, invest with your values. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Free yourself from prying eyes. Ask privately with Duck.ai. Visit Duck.ai to chat privately with ChatGPT, Claude, and other AIs for free. All in one place. Duck.ai is from DuckDuckGo, where AI is private and optional.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance. So even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com. 10 minutes, 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at shadyrays.com.
Almost half of women runners say safety is their biggest concern. Majority of us have to constantly change routes, start times.
Instead of thinking of my pace, we worry about being followed, unwanted attention, and stuff that is simply scary.
Imagine this banana was a less lethal device, capable of incapacitating an attacker, letting you get to safety. At Byrna, we don't sell bananas. Go to Byrna.com to find how you can always safely make it to the finish line.
A British ally of President Trump and a big-name conservative in the United Kingdom is calling it quits.
Today, I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election. It's a chance to stick two fingers up to the entire establishment, to frankly tell them where to go.
Nigel Farage has quit UK Parliament. His quitting triggers a special election, which Farage says he hopes to win. Farage is quitting as he faces an investigation into a $5 million gift from the Thai government. Farage says he has done nothing wrong. He says that the people, by voting him back into office, will clear his name. Also in UK news today, Prince Harry has more bad luck during his trip home. First, his brother said he could not stay in Buckingham Palace, and now he lost his case against the Daily Mail. The Prince and others, including Elton John, had sued the Daily Mail over privacy. Their lawsuits claim dozens of stories published between 1990 and 2011 were based on information that had been obtained unlawfully. The allegations involved hacked cell phones and tapped landlines. But today, the High Court of Justice in London dismissed those lawsuits. Royal commentator and journalist Josh Rom joins me. Josh, what's the bigger story? Is it Nigel Farage or is it Prince Harry coming home? Which is it?
I mean, both stories are just as big as each other. Nigel Farage resigning as an MP. What we know about this next by-election is so far the Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch have said that they're going to refuse to even stand a candidate, calling this by-election an absolute gimmick, effectively saying it's self-indulgent for Nigel Farage. He's making a story about him, and that Nigel Farage cannot escape the standards investigation into this £5 million payment, and that they look forward to battling a real by-election further down the line. But then Prince Harry, of course, for us royal watchers for the last couple of days, has practically hogged the headlines. Will he, won't he? Will the king see Archie and Lilibet and Meghan Markle? Will he stay in Buckingham Palace? Won't he stay in Buckingham Palace? And now, of course, today, this huge judgment, Judge Nicklin dismissing all 97 claims against the Associated Newspapers, against the publishers of the Daily Mail and the Mail of Sunday of unlawful information gathering. Huge news.
Why was he going to London in the first place? Was it because of this lawsuit, or was it to see his brothers, his family? Why was he going?
Well, he's actually returning to the UK to partake in charitable endeavours. He's going up to Birmingham on Thursday to mark the one-year countdown to the next Invictus Games in 2027. But of course, with all royal news, with all royal speculation, personal matters come first. We, of course, know, as I've reported on this programme previously, that His Majesty the King, he doesn't necessarily have the longest time left on the planet due to his cancer diagnosis. I heard from sources that the King was keen to spend time with his two grandchildren. We know that Prince Harry did want a reconciliation as well with his family, as stated publicly. However, Harry will say the establishment, it's another stitch up. He hasn't been granted security from RAVEC, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, and Buckingham Palace rescinded their invitation for him to stay, for him to use Buckingham Palace as accommodation during his trip.
Who makes the decision whether he stays at Buckingham Palace? Is it King Charles or is it someone else at Buckingham Palace?
Well, the invitation comes under King Charles, but I think in this instance, I'm not sure who actually ultimately made the decision, because basically in the run-up to it, the travel plans were a mess. He wasn't going to stay, now he was going to stay. The security arrangements were changing due to RAVEC's decision. And then Prince Harry publicly announced, oh, I'm going to stay at Buckingham Palace. And then the palace said, no, you missed the deadline, mate. So it's been a real mess. It's been a real confusing picture from what I'm hearing from sources. The king is still keen for that meeting. However, Harry and the kids will not do that in London. And I'm also hearing that the king will not alter his itinerary to make that meeting happen either.
Josh Rom, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, Trump's signature dance gets copied at the World Cup. Were the dancers good sports? That when the record continues.
I can't change my AMD diagnosis, but my eye doctor and I can change what I do about it with a plan that includes the most advanced PreserVision formula yet.
Introducing new PreserVision AREDS 3. A unique vitamin B complex is combined with the clinically proven AREDS 2 nutrients recommended to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression. A new triple action formula to help support macular health, made to protect, nourish, and boost.
For me, it's got to be 3.
New PreserVision AREDS 3.
When Conor McGregor fights, you're witnessing something once in a lifetime.
Surprise, surprise, the king is back!
All my life I want money and power.
Oh! Conor McGregor transcended the sport!
Max Holloway!
That's a real warrior! I'm right here! You're in for a treat!
McGregor vs. Holloway, Saturday, July 11th. Free with your subscription, only on Paramount Plus.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support with clinically studied grapeseed extract for nearly 2 times more effective blood pressure support than diet and exercise alone.
Super Beets works. I swear by it, and I know you're going to love it too.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
For 250 years, America has depended on the courage of those who serve. They've defended our freedom and helped us become the nation we are today. At Wounded Warrior Project, we honor the past by building a better future for post-9/11 veterans, service members, and their families. They've given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength and resilience. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring, understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. 2 of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
Well, the United States World Cup dream is now over. And despite having Team USA's top scorer last night, America suffered a 4-1 loss to Belgium. And of course, U.S. fans were disappointed with the result.
A lot of emotions. Just not our sport. Not our sport, not our night. See you in 4 years. Women's soccer, we got this.
Belgium fans, on the other hand, had a better night. If they watched from Belgium, they stayed up until 4 a.m. to see their team advance to the next round. Belgium's team even had a little fun after winning. How? By doing the Trump dance. The team did the Trump dance on the field. As an aside, Belgium is fortunate that Flo Balogun was able to play after his red card was reversed, because if he were banned and didn't play last night, USA's loss probably would have been blamed on not having our star player play. And I said this on my X account, there would have been an asterisk next to the Belgian win. Coming up, he is a really, really, really bad neighbor, and he's getting special treatment. That when the record continues.
Hey, I'm Carl Higby from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
As an athlete, I think I just always understood sleep as part of the performance equation. It was physical recovery. Especially as a mom, I think sleep has taken on an entirely new meaning for me. It's mental recovery, it's sanity, it's how I show up not just for my daughter, but for my work, even myself. And I think I used to think sleep was something you pushed through, and now I really think of it as something you protect.
Sattva, unlock the superpower of restorative sleep.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Where's the admission desk at your hospital? You may need it sooner than you think. It's the middle of the night, and you, your spouse, or your child is sick, high fever, can't keep anything down, and getting worse. Now you're waiting in the ER. And everyone gets seen before you. And when I finally see you and order prescriptions, you still have to wait for your pharmacy to open and hope they have what I prescribed. This is the medical emergency kit. It's stocked with essential medications, including amoxicillin, generic Z-Pak, and ivermectin. Now you have the right medications when you need them. And it's why I and so many of my colleagues have medical emergency kits. It's like having an urgent care and pharmacy in your home. Just fill out a brief online medical intake and your kit, prescribed by a licensed provider, is shipped to your door. Here's how to order.
Order your kit now and save $45. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news. That's urgentcarekit.com/news.
At Omaha Steaks, we take premium aged steak and turn it into pure ground burgers like this. Our Burger Perfection flight comes with 20 big, juicy burgers, all for just $79.99 at omahasteaks.com/TV. Burger Perfection guaranteed.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
If your roof looks like this, your home is at risk. A new metal roof from Erie Home withstands wind up to 120 miles per hour and hail up to 2 inches, all backed by a 50-year warranty. Call now for 50% off installation. Get your free estimate now.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
He weighs as much as a small car and keeps causing damage everywhere he goes. His name is Neil. He is an elephant seal. He lives in Tasmania, Australia. This 2,200-pound menace has drawn a lot of attention as he smashes and wrecks local infrastructure, signs, fences, and cars. But Australian officials are telling people to let Neil be. Local authorities are telling the public to give Neil privacy. They worry that by publicizing his whereabouts, Neil might have more opportunities to be aggressive. They fear he might get into a dangerous situation with a human. Neil is huge, but he's only 5 years old. He's expected to grow 3 times his current size, so watch out for Neil. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta. Well, I know I say this every night, so don't forget it. You'll like it. It's different. It's free. You can subscribe now on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at newsmax.com/listen. Thank you for watching. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Stay with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.